For years, Nigeria has been running a deficit budget, largely dependent on borrowings, which has seen the country's debt profile on the increase. To address this, the federal government is devising means of generating more revenue. One of the methods the government is adopting is expanding the tax net, as contained in the 2023 Finance Bill. There is a plan to impose tax on all services, a move some economists and financial analysts have criticized. For the director of the Center for Promotion of Private Enterprise, Dr. Muda Yusuf, one area where government can generate huge revenue is from ending the fuel subsidy and foreign exchange subsidy regimes. According to him, the country would save 6 million naira annually when fuel subsidy is removed, and also save huge sums of money if the gap between the official exchange rate and the black market rate is bridged. Dr. Muda Yusuf, director of the Center for Promotion of Private Enterprise, joins us now in the studio. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Good morning, my pleasure.
Now, this matter of spreading the tax net has always been one of the things that some economists we have spoken about, that is the way to go. But the way you are looking at it, it seems it's not really sitting well with you.
Exactly. First of all, let me say that what we said about the savings from subsidy was 6 trillion.
Oh, 6 trillion,
6
right.
trillion. That is what will be saved if we succeed in removing the subsidy as part of a holistic reform of the oil and gas sector. Now, coming back to the question about the tax net.
Yes.
Now, the challenge we have in the Nigerian economy is that the tax base is extremely narrow. So now that the government is getting very bullish about revenue generation, the pressure of tax is increasingly on this very narrow tax base. Basically, those who are in the formal sector of the economy. I'm talking about the corporates and those who are salary earners on the payroll of many of these companies. This economy has a very big informal sector. The informal sector is almost 50% of this economy. This economy has a whole lot of billionaires whom you cannot locate within this formal sector space, who are living very large. Some of them riding private jets, SUVs, building mansions, and all of that. So we need a strategy to ensure that these high-end individuals that are not in the tax net are properly within the tax net. Because many of them really don't have very visible offices, factories, where you can easily trace. But they consume a lot. They have private jets, they build mansions, they stay in five-star hotels, build presidential suites, you know, all these things. Lavish parties at the five-star. These are high net worth individuals who spend a lot. So we need a tax system that will be equitable and that will reduce the pressure on those who are investing in the economy. Because the challenge we are having now is that there is too much pressure on investors. And you need investors to create jobs. You need investors to grow the economy. You need investors to promote economic growth. Because if they make profits, if you take away practically all their profits, how will they grow the business? You talk about reinvestment of the profit. And for an average entrepreneur, what they think first, they are making more money, is how to grow the business. They're not thinking about how to go and spend lavishly, consume more. No. The propensity to invest is extremely high for an average entrepreneur. Now, you situate this within the context of the Finance Bill.
Yes.
Finance Bill was, put together. I think it came from the executive, went to the National Assembly and all of that. And the finance bill is throwing up a whole lot of new initiatives about revenue generation, which is coming again to put additional pressure on the existing businesses within the tax net. For instance, the finance bill is proposing an excise tax or excise duty on all services, whether it is media, financial services, tourism, whatever services. Now, the bill wasn't so clear as to what specific services are you going to impose tax on, and like how much. So that is true, it's too vague. So we have a problem with that. Because democracy is about engagement. If you are putting up such kind of legislation, there should be specifics.
Absolutely.
So that the stakeholders can also engage the National Assembly. That was not done before the bill was passed to the President for assent. Secondly, the bill is proposing an additional tax or a levy on all imports that are coming from outside of Africa. Now, mind you, these businesses are already paying a whole lot. We even already have something similar in the form of the ECOWAS tax, ECOWAS levy, 0.5% on all imports coming from outside of ECOWAS. A whole lot of that is being used to fund ECOWAS. Now there's a proposal on the table to impose additional 0.5% on the value of imports coming from outside Africa. That is additional cost. And at the time when people are crying about high cost of living,
right,
we are talking about high inflation, we are talking about high operating costs, we are talking about all manner of macroeconomic headwinds. This is also additional. Then we also have the proposal about the oil and gas. Yes, it is not good to encourage gas flaring, but we also need to be careful so that we don't discourage investors in the gas sector. We have more reserves in gas than in crude oil. And we are in a global environment now where the demand for gas is extremely high. And we should take very good advantage of that. So the proposal that is on the table within the context of the finance bill is to increase the tax, company tax for gas flaring companies from 30% to 50%. That is huge.
It's huge.
That kind of, irrespective of the degree of flaring. Again, that is too general. Because we need investors to come into this space. And we also can put other incentives in place, other measures to reduce gas flaring. Of course, there are existing policies. And apart from that, we had the PIA, the Petroleum Industry Act, which already spelled out all the incentives, fiscal terms for oil and gas companies. And the whole idea was to give confidence about policy stability in the oil and gas sector. You know how long it took us to get the Petroleum Industry Act. Now we have not even fully started implementation. We are throwing
taxes,
new things into the bill, which is in conflict with the letters and the spirit of the Petroleum Industry
This is
Act.
why you are asking that we turn our attention to the petrol subsidy.
Yes. You see, we are saying all of this just to caution. It is good to grow revenue. We don't have enough revenue, I agree. And we are not even spending enough, especially from the public sector. But in driving for revenue, you have to be careful that you don't kill the goose that lays the golden egg. The amount of taxes you are getting now, they are coming from these companies. Company tax is 30%. We have tertiary education tax, 2.5%. We have some taxes also on profit that is going to police trust fund. We have something that is going on profit to NITDA. We have something that is going to NASENI. Some people are also pushing now for a tax for NYC, 1% of profit. There's also a pressure now to also impose 1% of profit for tertiary health institution tax. All of these things are on the companies. By the time you put all of this together, you are talking of a
So are you saying they shouldn't be taxed at all?
No, I'm saying that the pressure should not be too much.
Yeah, but
If somebody is already paying 30% company tax, look at what I've highlighted. By the time you add it to it, they become to 35%. This in addition to other taxes like VAT. They pay import duty. They pay all, and we are talking about growing an economy. So that is why we are suggesting that we can look at other ways to unlock revenue. And one of the two critical areas, because if there is any burden that this economy is facing today, is around issues of subsidy regimes. Fuel subsidy regime and foreign exchange for subsidy regime.
Right.
If you address that, you'll be unlocking revenue close to 10 trillion naira annually.
yes,
These are the things we are looking
you
at.
made some points. Basically, that the tax net is very narrow.
Yeah.
How do we expand it? How do we expand the tax net?
Especially
Because
to
what
the
you
rich.
need- yes, what you are saying here is that the access to the information that we need to know who is not paying and how much they should pay is still in the cloud. But don't you think that it begins with data? How do we get to the point where we have enough data about this man who is earning so much, who is not in the tax net? He employs people, the people are not in tax net. He makes profit, the profit is not in the tax net. And it's the informal economy, which itself is huge, but it is not harnessed for the development of the country.
Yeah.
How do we get from that point where the narrow base of taxation
expanded.
is expanded? I cannot expand it without knowledge. That's why I'm talking about knowledge economy, but that starts with data. That people should be, you have identity, you have the companies that are formed, that can be traced. Companies are formed online. And in the US, they're still paying their taxes. So how do we get from this stage where we are to that stage?
Now, it's about use of technology. Lagos State is a very good example. You know, even in the course of this campaign, one of the major points or strong points of the Asiwaju campaign is the increase in taxation. And how did that happen? It's about strengthening the database and using technology to show that we bring in a lot of people into the tax net. So it is the responsibility of the political leadership to ensure that we have quality database of people in the economy, operators in the economy, who is buying what, who is consuming what kind of transactions are they doing? Because if people don't even have visible offices, they engage in some transactions. They transfer funds.
Yes.
You know, there are all sorts of ways from which you can get information.
And if they transfer funds, are the banks not a veritable source of data gathering?
Of course, they are.
Have we tried to harness that potential of getting the banks to get the list of those companies that are registered within the banks themselves, that have names in the banks, and ask them, you have been doing transactions, where are you, who is your CEO, where is your CEO, this money you have been transferring here and there, will you please account for them, and things like that. There's need for vigilance in that respect.
That is true. And a bit of that is already happening, actually, between the FRS and the banks. We have seen quite some activity, although sometimes they go to the other extreme of, harassing people and all of that. But there has been that kind of collaboration.
But is this systematized?
It is, in a way. It is.
How far? Because we still have a narrow base.
How come we are not getting the needed results?
We still have a narrow base. Even if you look at the sources of revenue in the budget, there is electronic transfer levy. is there. It's part of the revenue head. But the point I'm saying is that there are already steps in that direction. But we can do a lot more. Look at properties. Look at Lagos. How much are we getting from property tax? Look at Abuja. People are building mansions there. Sometimes people don't even live in them. They are not under any pressure because they didn't borrow money from the bank to build those houses.
Could there be corruption in the system that is not allowing them get to these people?
Well, I wouldn't say it's about corruption. I think it's about capacity. Just as he said, it's about getting your data. Because this thing starts with data. If you have sufficient data about the properties, Abuja should not be complaining about revenue for goodness sake. Over 50% of their revenue should be coming from property tax. The same thing with Lagos. A lot more can be gotten from property tax. It's not a small person that you go and build a 10, 15-story building. And all this heavy, in prime locations.
And then if we know capacity is our challenge,
So
how is it that over the years we haven't worked on the matter of capacity? Are we being deliberate in not broadening this narrow task that you are speaking about?
Perhaps first, it's about the capacity of the bureaucracy. Because when you have challenges like this, sometimes it's also about how well equipped the bureaucracy is. Don't forget, we are talking of the public sector environment.
Okay.
And generally, for most institutions, there are capacity problems. Secondly, there is also the issue of political will to make these things happen. Because if you want to be very intentional about these things, many of the people that will find culpable will be people who are, politically exposed, very influential people, and all of that. So when the agencies of government want to push in that direction, because of the caliber of that that may be involved, those things limit the successes that they achieve. So again, it's about leadership. Because the law is the law.
Right.
And we need to sustain this economy. We cannot continue this way where our debt service is almost wiping out our revenue. It's not sustainable. The budget of 22 trillion for an economy of 200 trillion is too small.
It's like a joke.
It's too small. It can't make an impact. So we need to extract more value from this economy, this 200 trillion naira economy, to be able to service the economy and the country itself. And that is why I was talking about unlocking this revenue. I talked about subsidy.
Yes.
If we're able to unlock the subsidy, remove it very strategically.
No.
Because some of these things are also easier said than done.
We've been speaking about this matter of...
Yes, we have to be strategic about it.
How so?
Because clearly, the subsidy regime is not sustainable. You can see the crisis and the pains that the citizens are facing. Long queues and all of it. People have been on the queue since 5 a.m. Even when the stations have not been open. This is Lagos. This is the landing point for even the petroleum products. If we're experiencing this kind of thing in Lagos, you can imagine what is happening in other parts of the country. So all of these things will continue to happen if we don't address the fundamentals. And part of the fundamentals is the removal of this subsidy. First, if we remove it, and just as I said, it has to be strategic.
Yeah.
If we remove it, we will unlock revenue. So there's a revenue effect. Because the subsidy itself is not getting to the people for whom it was meant. We have had stories of people in the east, south, far north, where they are buying fuel now at over 300 naira per liter. if you remove the subsidy, can it be worse than that? I doubt it. So the benefit of the subsidy is
so some
going
people are subsidizing
largely.
themselves ahead of the subsidy.
Exactly. It's going largely into the pockets of some people within the chain. So from that, we can harness minimum of about 6 trillion. In the budget, I believe we provide for 3 trillion for half year. Full year will be 6 trillion or even more.
Yes.
So that is one way. If you get 6 trillion into the kitty, that is something. Secondly, the removal of subsidy has an investment effect. Which one can even be more important than the revenue effect. Right now, we don't have sufficient investment in our oil and gas sector, particularly downstream, because of this subsidy. Nobody will go into a business where it is the government that will be dictating the price at which we sell your products. It doesn't happen.
But there are those who have said that we see for diesel that the subsidy, there's no subsidy for diesel, but then the price is still increasing. And so they are saying, they are weighing both options, saying that even if we remove the subsidy for the fuel, petroleum product, it is not going to make much difference at the end of the day.
No, it will. It will. I say this because the removal of subsidy is not just a stand-alone policy. It's not a stand-alone policy measure. If you remove it, I was talking about the investment effect. More investment will come into that space. Right now, what we are having is a monopoly situation. NNPC is the sole supplier of petroleum products in the country. That cannot work for us. It's a melting pot for corruption, for inefficiencies. And that is what we are witnessing across the entire chain in the oil and gas sector today. So if we remove the subsidy, investors will be able to go in there. Just as investors came into telecoms. You cannot compare the United days
with what it is now.
with the the GSM days that we are in now.
Unlocking the economy.
So if we do that, a lot, because there's a whole lot of investment opportunities in that sector across the entire chain. A lot of opportunities in refineries, in petrochemicals, in fertilizer. Name it. So if we're able to remove that, more investment, private investment. And if you have that, we have more output, more production. That is one. Secondly, competition is key in any space. Whether you are producing it locally, whether you are importing it, if there is no competition and we remove the subsidy, we'll be back to square one. So we should create a level playing field. You cannot have a situation where only NNPC will be the one importing. We have investors in that sector who have the capacity to import. So if there is competition, it will bring some succor. Because the best way to protect consumers in any system is to introduce competition. Not by chasing people, price control, DSS, closing station. That cannot help. If you have a level playing field, where an NPC is competing with other private sector players, prices will come down.
I'm wondering how
when we started the GSM, how much were we buying the SIM card?
I'm wondering.
Nobody came out to say that you should go and reduce the price of SIM card.
Right.
But we introduced more players. And how much are we buying SIM card today?
You are talking generally about remapping the economy. Yeah. That's what you're talking about.
Exactly. These are fundamental reforms.
We have been talking about political restructuring. We are talking of economic restructuring.
Yes.
Which begins with data, begins with information, and then it begins with
the right policies.
With a platform that allows different sectors to operate within certain protocols.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. We need the right kind of policy framework, the right kind of regulatory framework, so that we can unlock all these potentials. And this exists across all sectors. But
first, we have to bring all this economy from the underground to the overground. before we can actually decide where they are. Because if they are hiding under the sewers, we cannot know what is there and what is not there. We have to bring them down outside so we can see all the frogs, we can see all the tadpoles, we can see all the deaths and the weeds, and then we know how to separate the robust frog from the dying frog. That's how you can keep the economy going. I use the right metaphor.
Yes, you use the right thing. And the thing is that when businesses are going underground, why are they going underground? If your policies are wrong, if their policies are not equitable, businesses will go underground.
If they don't have access to capital the way they should have,
yes.
If they don't have access to labor,
yes.
or the trained labor the way they should have, they will not operate within the formal sector.
They won't operate.
But if there is a
if you're overtaxing them, they will go underground.
They will go underground and dodge it.
Yes.
But nobody loves to be taxed.
No, nobody loves to be taxed. You know,
it's
I
what they call
agree.
civic coercion that,
Yes.
that the society has to force you
have
to
do
help
that.
the society.
You have to
Yes.
do that.
Yes.
But again, you have to be equitable. I'm talking about equity now.
No,
if you have so many people making money in the same economy, some are paying tax, some are not paying tax.
Yes.
It's about equity.
But you get a situation where a plumber will go and work in a house and will not pay tax.
Well, there
We
are
have so many
strategies.
of them. But in an organized economy, before you even go and work in a particular place to go and do the plumbing, the thing is recorded in the system. How much you are going to pay, how much the owner of the house is going to pay you, is going to even be taxed before the plumber leaves the place he's coming
That
from.
is
So,
true.
so for example, the plumber is working on his own, it's like a free radical.
Just as you said, it's about data.
It's about data.
In many of these economies, we have data, you have information about
Yes,
everything,
everybody.
every
But
transaction.
that's the essence of the BVN, the NIN, and all
you
of
have
it.
that. But if you have an economy where you don't have data, you can devise other strategies.
Like, quickly, because we
Now,
need to
the
wrap up.
plumber that is not paying tax, at least he's buying something.
Yes.
You can go and wait for him where he's buying the thing.
All right.
Exactly.
And he puts tax on the thing that he's buying.
Yes.
All right.
So if you dodge
paying
it,
the tax- yes.
what you dodge at the roundabout,
You meet it somewhere else.
You meet it somewhere else.
Anyway, we need to move now because
So
of our
Get it
also
at the
the
corner.
same thing with foreign exchange. We have not been able to address that. You cannot be selling your foreign exchange
At
at 455 when the end users are paying 700.
it
We
doesn't
are
make sense.
losing on each dollar.
We need
almost
to wrap up
150.
now.
$50.
We need to wrap
That is
up
3
now.
trillion per annum.
50,000, yeah.
All right. We must
So this
thank
is
you.
very critical. We need revenue.
I know, but we have limited
Anyway, we
time.
don't have the time to
Dr.
discuss
Muda
that.
Yusuf, Director
Thank you.
for the Center for Promotion of Private Enterprise. Thank you for your time on the program.
Thank you, my pleasure.